It's not lost on me, son, the irony that the biggest hit song from the band War is Why Can't We Be Friends? And I suspect that will be the theme of today's show. Are you ready to go?
I am ready to go.
Hello, welcome to Hard Compound, an American take on Formula One. We just finished watching the Austrian Grand Prix. Started as expected. It did not finish as expected. We are only at race 11. We are not even halfway through this season. And it's getting nasty. Friendships are being broken. I mean, team principals are throwing down. Drivers are throwing down. This is what we wanted. We wanted racing, yes. We also wanted drama. And this race delivered. Patrick, son, give me your take on the Austrian Grand Prix.
The Austrian Grand Prix is always a fun one. This one was no different. We got, like you said, some friendship battles, some teammate battles, lots of action. We had a sprint race.
Oh, yeah, a sprint. Oh, that's right. We'll get to that. Keep going.
Just a crazy Sunday. You mentioned the band war. We got U2 album war, Sunday Bloody Sunday. That's pretty much what this day came down to. I mean, just craziness. We had, I guess, more or less an unexpected race winner in George Russell, the highest finishing McLaren, Oscar Piastri. That's a little bit new given Lando's form. Just craziness. Max with some, just tough defending, maybe a little bit too much. Got a puncture, got a 10-second penalty, still finished 20 fucking seconds ahead of Sergio Perez. I don't know what to say about that.
Yeah. Though I think it was last week, you predicted you didn't think Max was going to finish or Sergio be in the points, and you came damn close. That was eerie.
It was close. I mean, just a wild finish to the race. I think it was up until lap 40, 50, something like that. Once we got those third pit stops for Red Bull, Verstappen and Norris, that's when they really came close together and started scrapping. And ultimately, that's what led to a lot of that chaos that happened near the end of the race.
Oh, yeah. It was like one of those old movies. Nice slow burn, like Chinatown. You think, interesting. Oh, this is really, really well done. Yeah, this is good. Oh, my God. So that was good. I mean, people hate this, but I call Max the Michael Jordan of F1. And it's not just because he's better than everybody. It's just that insane focus, that determination, that competitive drive, that's I'm going to win. If I have to bend reality, I will win. And, a lot of people are talking about him and Lando crashing together, and almost everyone is saying it's Max's fault, which is correct. Most people, I think, are overstating it. I mean, these are racing incidents in some sense. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what FIA decides if they severely punish Max, which I severely doubt, or Red Bull, again, which I doubt. Look, this is what's allowed. This is what you're going to have to do. If you're going to take me out, this is what Max is saying. It's like that Ozark meme. This is what you're going to have to do. Lando can say, hey, this is going to end our friendship. It's like, Max is like, look, I can make friends. I'm not even sure he wants friends, but this is what you're going to have to do to beat him.
Yeah, I mean, the last time Max was in a real title fight, Lewis Hamilton was vying for his 8th world championship. And we all know how that season played out. I think both of them had 3, 4, 5 DNFs because they came together on so many occasions.
Yeah.
Neither one of them backed down. Max is saying, look, you currently, Lando, are my title rival. McLaren is racing well. You're racing well. I don't have a teammate to back you off. I'm going to do it myself. And I think that is a strategy that has won him races and additional points. It did in this case. all he got was a little slap on the wrist 10-second penalty, didn't even change his place after, his puncture. Meanwhile, Lando is retired from the race because of so much damage to his car. I don't know what you want to say. Of course, it's Max's fault. Of course, he deserves to be penalized for it. And he was, albeit, frankly, I don't think severely enough. But when it comes down to it, in a close championship battle, there's going to be some nasty stuff that goes on. We've seen it every single time there's a close championship battle. Last time in 21 with Hamilton and Max. Previously, it really wasn't back until 2016 when Rosberg and Hamilton were clashing. Those are fun. It's fun to watch. You get more into the sport. There's more excitement, more drama, people going crazy. The back and forth on the radio is going, he fucking did so-and-so and he did that and I didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. It's fun. And I had a great time watching this race, even before the incident. It was just good fun.
When Nico Rosberg retired, and until Red Bull had a car, which Max took over, I don't want to take anything away from what Lewis Hamilton has achieved, but he had such a dominant car for so many years. He essentially, I don't want to say he coasted, but there was never over a season any real threat to him losing. Never. Maybe 1 year in Ferrari, Vettel had a few races where he could compete, but Ferrari was not able to keep that car up to pace for a full season. And I think folks maybe who just started watching when Lewis was winning don't realize the tradition of just utter ruthlessness. And this is what's required. And like I said, I do think you don't want to necessarily judge or penalize Max based on his car was still able to race, Lando's wasn't. So Lando got no points. I do think he should have a harsher penalty. But, look, this is what it's going to take to beat him. I think Lando now knows that. I think George and Charles know that. I don't know if they're up for it, but this is what it's going to take.
Yeah, I think we have seen a lot of growth from Lando Norris over the last couple of seasons. I think this is a growing moment for him. He's looking at this and going, okay, if I want to win more races, if I really want to compete for that championship, I'm going to need to fight tooth and nail. I'm going to need to get my elbows out. I can't be nice. I can't be the fun, silly, goofy driver on the grid anymore. People are not going to like me as much anymore. Max, I think, is generally pretty likable person. I think Hamilton seems like a pretty likable person. When they're in these title fights, nobody fucking likes them.
Right. Yeah, all the Lando girlies, he's cute, he's cute, he's fun, and it's like, you know what? That's not going to win a race. That's not going to win a championship.
Yeah, for sure. I guess going back to the penalty for Max, right? He got a 10-second penalty for that collision. I think it was pretty obvious he caused that collision. Before that, Lando was trying to go down on the inside and Max was, moving over in the braking zone. He was being a little bit dirty for most of that defense, which, ultimately it cost him some extra points and probably some penalty points and whatever. But just the lack of consistency from race stewards, from race to race, especially the lack of real punishments that matter for, dangerous and kind of crappy defenses like this is shocking to me. Max gets a 10-second penalty for essentially crashing into Lando, causing too much damage to his car to continue. Meanwhile, the one thing that comes to my mind, Fernando Alonso in Australia got a 20-second penalty, twice as much as Max got here for literally being ahead of George Russell and Russell fucking no contact whatsoever. Right? Right. I'm not understanding, how did any of the drivers know what is allowed and what is not allowed?
Oh, we've already talked about, our conspiracy theory that they're out for Alonso, and they don't want defensive driving. The 2026 regulations almost even seem to sort of ban defensive driving. But maybe it's not a conspiracy theory, because conspiracies require a lot of people who know what they're doing. This is another case where I'm just not sure F1 knows what it's doing. So, I mean, you're totally right. And I got two things in my life, the F1 and the Beatles. But, the Beatles, they could have continued being likable, being lovable. All the teeny bopper girls showing up, screaming till they fainted. But, they were like, no, that's not where greatness is. They said goodbye to all that. This Lando, I'm with you. He needs, this is a moment for Lando where it's like, what kind of driver are you going to be? Are you going to be a Daniel Ricciardo driver? Everybody's going to like you, but that's it. Or are you going to challenge Max for wins?
It'll be fun to see. I expect him to grow, and he seems to me like he's going to hunt down those wins, just do everything he can to win titles. Seems like, McLaren is, I think we say this every year, but McLaren actually has a good car this year, and they look, very solid pretty much in every race. If they keep that up, he's going to be contending for years in that car, in that team. He's got an opportunity with that team to really fight and push Max to the edge, push any other title contender to the edge. I think he'll do it, but I think this is where he starts.
Yeah, I think so. And I hope so, because this is what we want. And not just this race, but this season. This is shaping up to be such a good season. We've had 5, let's see, Max has won, Lando has won, right? Charles, Carlos, now George. So 5 different winners, 4 different teams, I'll say. That's pretty good.
That is good. That is a lot better than last year. We had 3 winners and only 2 constructors. Max had, 18 of them? So 19 of them?
Yeah. This is going to be tough. So Ferrari's actually had both drivers have won, but I think it was in Montreal. We were like, oh yeah, Charles is the one. He will have to pay for Ferrari's sins. I'm not sure what Ferrari's sins are, but clearly they have them, many of them.
Being Italian, probably.
Right. And Charles will have to suffer for them. Another race. He was just outside the points, right? He took on some damage and then that was it.
Which, quite frankly, was entirely Sergio Perez's fault. He basically ruined Leclerc's race on the first corner.
I especially have talked up Sergio Perez because I think he's a fine driver. He's obviously great for branding because, folks like him. But he's also, I think, been a fine driver. And as we said, who's going to be Max's teammate? Christian Horner is just a wolf. Max Verstappen is a wolf. You can't send like a normal human being into a den of wolves. Somehow Sergio Perez has survived, but he now has to go, I think. Since Max has been there, Red Bull's gotten rid of Ricardo, Danny Kvyat, whom I liked. Gasly was demoted. Albon was demoted. I don't think we can make excuses anymore for Sergio. Haas, I think, didn't Hulkenberg finish ahead of Haas? Yes. I don't think this was the first time Haas was double points, but both him and Hulkenberg and Magnussen got points. And there was no reason in that car for Sergio to finish so far back. It's just, I don't know. Can we find an excuse for Perez?
No. Last year I said they should get rid of him and replace him with somebody better, Albon or whoever. They decided, we'll sign him for 1 more year. This year he's looked even worse than last year. And I think that has to do with the fact that other teams, other constructors are catching up to Red Bull and, they're all just better drivers. And so they outqualify him and then go on and outrace him. Perez is a fine driver. That's why he's been in F1 for as long as he has. But this is not a guy who, frankly, can even compete for podiums, when he's in a car that is winning more races than anybody else. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, week to week, Red Bull has between the first or second or third best car. essentially. It's usually first or second. Yeah, I don't know. Speaking of best cars, I mean, earlier in the season, we thought, wow, good on Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari's signing him to this massive deal. He's going to be out there, brand ambassador for Ferrari, helping them sell cars, and he'll be in a better car than Mercedes. But I'm not so sure. One thing Mercedes has shown over the past decade plus is reliability, consistency. As a full team, even when they're not at their very best, they are still good. Good in strategy, good car, good reliability, good pace, and they seem to get better. Ferrari just up and down week after week, it seems like. So I'm not what do you think? I mean, you think is Mercedes next year when Lewis is at Ferrari gonna be better than Ferrari?
That would be silly. I don't know. Mercedes has had a rough go of it the last few years. I think they are very good at continuing to develop the car, develop new aero parts throughout the season, to basically look at their car and see what is working and what is not. And they've done a good job of making it competitive. Ferrari kind of seems to get things right out of the gates, and then maybe is not as good as Mercedes at sort of bringing updates and improving the car throughout the season. And so they end up more or less on equal footing, or Mercedes just a little bit quicker by the end of the season. I'm really not sure, what the outlook is for either of those teams next season. It'll be really interesting to see. I expect something sort of similar where they're kind of on equal footing and maybe just a little bit behind Red Bull. And I see this as more of almost a legacy move for Lewis, where, he's got his 7 world championships with McLaren and Mercedes. And, pretty much every driver's dream, seems like, anyways, is to race for Ferrari. And he is getting an opportunity to do that, to put on the same suit, get in the same car for the same team as all the legends that have come before him. And I don't know if this is really a move for Hamilton where he thinks, all right, this is the team I'm going to win my 8th championship with, but it's the team I'm going to finish my career with and will kind of be or have my legacy remembered as 7-time world champion and Ferrari driver.
I tend to agree. I mean, Ferrari's offering basically what some of these top soccer stars are getting. Just insane amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars. He gets to promote the brand, promote all his causes. Mercedes has had, 2 wins in the past, 3 years, both by George Russell. So I doubt Lewis really believes he's going to get that 8th, unless Ferrari has just been building something magical, which is unlikely. So I tend to agree with you. I get your top 5 drivers. This was an interesting race. What are your top 5 for Austria?
This was interesting. It's a little bit hard given the incident between Norris and Verstappen. Overall, I think Norris had a great weekend, great drive, and kind of really wasn't even given an opportunity to go for that win. He was sort of taken out before then. So I'm going to say my top driver of the weekend is Lando Norris. He really looked like the only guy that could compete with Max in qualifying, in the sprint, in the race. I think he had a bit of a slip up in the sprint. He tried really hard to get past Max. He got past him and then got pushed way wide, and his teammate was able to come through. But as for Sunday's race, Lando just looked awesome. I think he probably should have or could have won that race. Unfortunate for him, but I think he and Max are probably the 2 most informed drivers right now. So Lando, top driver of the day. Then I have George Russell in that Mercedes, coming out with the win. really good points. He had a good sprint too. Great points from Mercedes, still finishing ahead of Lewis Hamilton, finishing ahead of the Ferraris. So really good job from him. And have Oscar just, continues to be solid in that McLaren. It's only his second season in F1 and looks just really calm, relaxed, fast. Another good drive from him. I have Carlos Sainz, the other guy on the podium today.
Yeah, Carlos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sort of
Hadn't forgotten.
quietly competing with Hamilton, I think, over the last few races, it seems like.
Yeah. And they had a nice little spat in the race. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
So he looked good. He looks still fast, still like he's, fighting for somebody to look at him and pick him to drive for them next season. He looks, happy to compete with Lewis. Looks just a little bit more comfortable than Charles has the last few races. So good work from him. And, Ferrari's looked a little bit down the last few races, but getting on the podium is good to see from them. Then lastly, I had to give props to Nico Hulkenberg, Haas driver, finishes ahead of Sergio Perez. Probably if Max gets a penalty that is actually worthwhile, he also finishes ahead of Max. But ultimately, that Haas car looked quick, looked fun. Both drivers looked like they were enjoying driving that car for, at least one race. And I think Hulkenberg just looked really good. So him in my top 5 too.
Nice. Switching to the soft compound. Not sure who made this comment originally, this query. Paris is holding the Olympics this year. It's in about a month. Should motorsport be an Olympic sport, Patrick? And what would that look like? Would it be like F1? Would it be like Indy? That insane motorcycle racing like NASCAR? I doubt it. It would be like NASCAR, but you never know. Stock cars. And more importantly, who would win? Like which countries? Like imagine an Olympic motorsport.
It would be interesting to see, like a street race through some of these host cities. I almost am thinking of like either like a time trial or like a hill climb kind of race. I think those are fun to watch. Who would win? That's an interesting one. I feel like there's some good Dutch drivers, racers, bikers, some good Finns, good Brits. I have to assume, like one of those countries would probably end up winning. I gotta go with Finns. The Finnish drivers are kind of fucking crazy and like pretty fast. So
who knows what they would do? Great getting Kimi Räikkönen out there, that'd be fun. I mean, we've got American drivers; they would be good. Brits, obviously. I mean, we see just in F1, Lando, Lewis, George.
Aussies, maybe.
The Aussies, yeah. That would be fun. That would be fun to see, actually. I mean, the global sort of interest in motorsports seems to be increasing, which I like, And so that leads me to another topic. So I saw this news story where a lot of the shareholders were giving Toyota's chairman, and I believe his last name is Toyoda, so I think, he's been multi-generational CEO. They were giving him grief because he's really into motorsports and racing. He's promoting it. I'm like, this is awesome. These shareholders are missing out, and we're seeing, like I said, on the American side, Ford getting into F1, GM trying to get into F1. I saw Hyundai is trying to get into Le Mans hypercars. Who knows? Maybe they'll get into F1. Honda, F1. They're in Indy, NASCAR. I think NASCAR maybe. I don't know. What do you think? I think the Toyota shareholders don't know what they're talking about.
I think it's all getting into motorsport is generally only a good thing for these OEMs. Yeah, like you mentioned, there's a lot. Honda, Ford is getting into F1. They've been doing motorsport for a long time. GM with Cadillac, with Chevrolet in Indy and NASCAR. There's a lot of these, auto manufacturers, auto companies are involved in motorsport, and seems like only a good thing to promote your brand, to develop new technologies that ultimately, in general, find their way down into customer vehicles, things like that. So I got no problem with it. I see it as a good thing.
Yeah, me too. I mean, there's carbon fiber, there's different materials, better safety measures, hybrid fuels. I don't know what else? Just better engines.
Yeah, I mean, there's efficiency, more efficient engines, more efficient aerodynamics, lots of different stuff that can benefit just overall general vehicles that hit roads. I don't know why people would complain about it. I don't know why shareholders would complain about it. I don't know what their numbers are telling them, but seems to me like overall being involved in motorsport will do your company good.
Yeah, I mean, the branding and, the marketing side, and then the trickle down, that technology getting down into your street cars that you sell to consumers. Let's talk about drivers now. Toto keeps hinting, suggesting that he wants to poach Max Verstappen away from Red Bull. My suspicion is he's just trying to give Christian Horner the business because he knows Max isn't leaving and Toto doesn't have a driver yet to replace Lewis. So I think he's just, he's just trying to get under Christian Horner's skin. What do you think?
Yeah, Max is not leaving. So the Toto poking at that it's not changing anything. I highly doubt it's even bothering Christian Horner. I don't know why he keeps doing it, but you know, Toto he likes to play games, I guess, and I don't know. Doesn't make sense to me. There's no reason for him to be talking about that. Just go after the driver that you actually want, which frankly should be Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, I agree. And now, speaking of that, we done been told you, I think it was you that done been told us, Daniel Ricciardo would be out this year and that he wouldn't even finish the year. He wasn't really much of a factor this whole weekend again, although Racing Bulls has been in a bit of a tailspin. Who do you think that's on the grid this year will not be back next year?
Yeah. Ricardo was able to get a couple of points this weekend and finish ahead of Yuki. I think that's 2 weeks in a row that he's finished ahead of Yuki, but still more or less a non factor, still behind Yuki in the Drivers' Championship. Really doesn't look like anything special. I don't think Ricardo's going to be on the grid next season, but you never know. Some of these constructors teams sort of go with the safe option, and Ricardo is pretty much the safe option. So it's very possible that he's back.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of fans may not realize not only is Ricardo well liked, which is good for the team, good for the sport, good for the team sponsors, but these cars are just so expensive. And with the spending cap, Ricardo doesn't crash out. That's having a young guy who's much faster than Ricardo, but crashes out. I mean, look, Mick Schumacher wasn't really much faster than Ricardo, but Haas kicked him out because it's like, look, man, we just can't afford you. So you're right. I think Ricardo's out, but you're right. I guess he could be back. It's hard for me. Some of these guys, it's tough for me to see Haas bringing back Magnussen. I think he's worn out his time. I'm not sure why anyone would bring Zhou back. Maybe Bottas. But I mean, right now, they have no points. I mean, we knock Logan Sargent. We say he's going to be out. He has 0 points. Well, so does Bottas. So does Zhou with, with Kick Sauber.
Yeah. I think Zhou probably won't be back, although he may, end up being in kind of that Yuki situation where he really didn't look all that good for first few seasons, and maybe Sauber is hoping that he kind of finds his form. I don't really expect that to happen. Bottas, I think, is sort of similar to Ricardo in that he is well liked and pretty safe. Doesn't really seem like he's getting much done on track, but he's not costing them a whole lot, and people like him. So there's no real need to replace him unless you absolutely think you have found the chosen one and they'll get you a ton of points and win you races and whatever. I don't think they'll find that. Magnussen, I don't foresee him coming back. Ocon, I think, is also, not signed, probably not going back to Alpine. I would say he'll probably find a seat. He might be the other driver at Williams or something like that.
Mercedes might sign him for a year. They might.
That would be weird if Mercedes signed Esteban Ocon, but they do. Good for him. Fucking around at Alpine actually got you a better position. So well done to you.
Right. This is not related to what we were just speaking about, but I remember during the race, Bernie, what is her name? She used to be a strategist. And,
right?
Yeah, Bernie Collins. And she's Scottish, so it's tough to understand what she's saying, but she always delivers. She always has such good insights. And I was up early. I watched Martin's grid walk. I saw the full Sky Sports, pre-race show. They had Hans Zimmer, the musician, composer, and I'm watching on ESPN. And I hate to complain. I leave the complaining to the Brits. They're really, no one's better than the Brits at complaining. But ESPN is such garbage. I mean, we've been promoting F1 in America for years now. And if it really does sort of get mega popular, ESPN will take it over, let's say. At least they'll have, their own broadcast rather than just showing us the Sky F1 broadcast. And that's not going to make me happy. I mean, we had Martin's grid walks, we had Bernie Collins' strategy. They have great interviews. Martin Brundle sat down with Toto Wolff, where there was no hot takes, no screaming, just a good interview. Yeah. So I just want to say that. I hope F1 continues to grow in popularity, but just not so much that ESPN takes over the broadcast, because they're just not good.
Yeah, I think, we always would want a broadcast that is coherent, that makes sense, that isn't dramatized in a way that detracts from the sport itself. I think we all sort of enjoy Drive to Survive to an extent and are happy that it has sort of grown the sport and, allowed people to sort of experience F1 and bring them into the sport and kind of find it that way. But when you're actually watching the sport, I think you want something that makes sense, that is really involved with the sport and sort of doesn't go over the line and make up things that aren't happening. Or I think F1 is fun in itself, and it doesn't need to be more than that. And I think generally when American broadcasts get involved, they make the sport about more than just the sport. And I don't think anybody wants that.
Across the line, that's our segment where we predict the next race winners. The next race is next week at Silverstone, Independence Weekend here in America. And across the line, we predict who we think will finish in the top 5. If they do, we get a point. If we get them in the exact right position, we get 3 points. Patrick, what are the current standings for across the line? I know last week you had some, like I said, some outrageous stuff where I think you did not think Max would win. You weren't sure Red Bull was going to make some points. So I'm curious the standings.
So before this weekend, I was leading this little game, 34 points to 24. So looking at the actual top 5 of this weekend's race, we had Russell, Piastri, Sainz, Hamilton, and then Verstappen, P5. Your picks were Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Alonso,
Oof.
and me, Norris, Hamilton, Russell, Piastri, Gasly. So that ended up giving me 3 points, you 2 points. Neither one of us picked anybody in their correct finishing position, but we did get all 5 drivers that ended up in the top 5. So my 3 points to your 2 points brings us to me 37, you 26.
Darn, this is like Red Bull McLaren here. Okay. All right. As I've got some work to do, who goes first? I think you do.
I go first this week.
Darn it.
So,
but hold on. Last year, I should mention at Silverstone, Max did win. But it was a good week for the Empire. It was Lando, P2, Lewis, Oscar, George. So Max and then the Empire. Okay.
Well, Silverstone, we're going to have in a couple of angry drivers, 2 best drivers on track. I'm going to go take the hometown kid, Lando Norris.
Nice. That would be good. That would be good to see him win. I'm going to, since I've got 2 picks here, I think George is going to repeat. So I'm going with George, my P1. And P2, he edges out Max Verstappen.
Ooh, interesting. Let's see. I am going to go with Carlos Sainz, P2, narrowly edging out the man who's replacing him next year at Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton.
Nice, yeah. We up until the Lando Max kerfuffle, Carlos and Lewis were having some good racing there, so that's good.
I think that'll be an awkward cool-down room if Sainz and Hamilton are battling and end up both on the podium.
That would be nice.
I would like to see it.
Yes. All right. So has Charles suffered enough? I think he has. So I'm going to make Charles P3. And then McLaren has been so well consistently now for several races. My P4 will be Oscar Piastri.
Nice. This is an interesting one. I think I am going to take Ocon P4, and then maybe we'll go with Perez P5.
Nice. So you have Lando, Carlos, Lewis Hamilton, Esteban Ocon, and Sergio Perez in Silverstone. I have George, Max, Charles, Oscar. I want to choose my boy Alonso here. Alonso got his elbows out more than needed against the poor Joe at Sauber today. And I just think it's his frustration because that Aston is a bad car that's getting worse. They seem to put everything in at the first few races, and that's it. That is a bad car. And Alonso is just like, I am just too old for this shit. So I have George, Max, Charles, Oscar, Yuki.
Ooh.
Let's see what the Racing Bull can do. Any crazy predictions, Patrick?
Crazy predictions. I don't have any crazy predictions. I have a prediction my prediction is that Lance Stroll, at the end of his career, will hold the record for most F1 races started by any driver ever.
That would be shocking.
He just re-signed with Aston naturally. I don't think anybody thought anything else was going to happen. I don't think anything else is ever going to happen in his career. He's just going to be a driver that goes around a track 23 to 25 times a year. And that's all that is ever going to be. But he's never going to leave because he doesn't have to. He
could do it till he's 45. Lawrence Stroll strikes me as a guy who just can't say no to the money. So I can see some sheik from Bahrain just raining down so much stupid money that he sells Aston. And once he sells Aston, Lance Stroll is done. So I have my doubts about this. I'd like a crazy prediction that next week at Silverstone British Grand Prix, it will be an all-British podium. But I don't think that's going to happen. Oh, but so here's a good one. This is a nice crazy prediction for you. Logan Sargent, who we believe will not be in F1 next year, will finish the year with more points than either Zhou or Bottas.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to finish on the same number of points as them, 0. I honestly don't even think he's trying anymore. He doesn't look like he's trying. He's like 30 seconds slower a fucking lap than everybody. It's embarrassing. Can we please just get rid of him already? I don't want to watch him anymore.
Oh, that's tough. That's rough. All right. I want to thank you all for listening to everybody's most beloved father and son F1 podcast. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend. And we are lights out.
See ya. Thanks for listening.
You just finished listening to Hard Compound, recorded in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and around the world.